Since the 1999 Constitution came into use, concerns have been raised by individuals and groups who believe the Constitution is not a product of wide consultation and shouldn't start with we, the people of Nigeria. How then can Nigeria get a constitution it can call its own? And who are those expected to open the discussions on the renegotiation of the current 1999 Constitution, which has been considered by many groups as the main cog in the wheel of Nigeria's progress? This is the Eastern Eye. I am Alex Obodo. Welcome to the Eastern Eye on Afia TV, where we x-ray the political, social, and economic developments around us. Holes have been picked in the current 1999 Constitution, but what really is wrong with the document? Can it be remedied, and by who? My guest tonight is Tony Nnadi. He is a legal practitioner and Secretary General of the Lower Niger Congress LNC and co-convener of NINAS, Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. Thank you so much, Tony Nnadi, for joining me on the Eastern Eye tonight.
For having me. Welcome, viewers.
All right. So, is Nigeria's core problem a dysfunctional constitution arrangement and not leadership?
Precisely. Imposed, fraudulent, and totally dysfunctional constitutional arrangements. That is 100% of the problem. And the leadership that we have, the leadership deficits and the dysfunctions we have seen are directly, caused by that constitutional arrangement that cannot, produce any better leadership. Same for the corruption we see and all the other dysfunctions we see around. That Nigeria is where it is today is on account of that imposed constitutional arrangement.
So typically then, if someone is asking for the constitution to be renegotiated or recalibrated, now why would someone really call the 1999 Constitution a forgery?
Yes, I have a copy of the document here, and I'm sure most of our viewers will have either the hard copy or the soft copy. It's actually on the internet. If you click 1999 Constitution of Nigeria, something is likely to come up. And so you go to the preamble that says that we, the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, having solemnly resolved to live in unity as one indivisible, indissoluble country, then it goes down to say, do hereby give unto ourselves the following constitution. There are three fundamental lies, three foundational lies that are contained in that, in that preamble, and that is what renders the entire document, the fraud it is, because the authors of the document also told the story of how they came about the document inside the document. Decree number 24 by Absalom Abaka, that's of 1999, told the story of how they came about the constitution. They said they set up a committee that went around, to some, of course, they would have been sitting in hotels and beer parlors, probably with their men Friday and girlfriends if they wish. And so they came up with what they brought back to the Armed Forces Ruling Council of the time. That's Absalami's Supreme Military Council in quote. And that Armed Forces Ruling Council added to, subtracted from the report that was brought back by that committee, Nick Itobi was the name of the head of the committee. The bottom line, the important thing is that constitution making is the exclusive business of those who are going to federate. Like the memo and articles of a company is the exclusive business, is the exclusive, prerogative of the shareholders, the promoters, the people who want to set up company. Mr. A, B, and C are coming together to form XYZ Limited. That coming together, that agreement to come together to risk their assets and their names, in a venture they may call XYZ Limited. That is the first part they call the memorandum. Then the articles of association is the second document that they draw up after they have agreed to form, an enterprise, a corporate entity by name XYZ Limited. And so, as it is for the company, so it is for the country. That the constitution is the exclusive business of those who could otherwise have been countries of their own. The Yoruba would be a country of 60 million people plus. The eastern side could be a country of 70 million people plus. If Biafra had stayed, it probably would be in excess of 70 million people, bigger than most of the countries of Europe of today. And the same thing with the Middle Belt and all the other components. But if they are going to form a union, which is what the constitution is supposed to be settling, the question of being in a union and the question of the terms of the union, because it is in that terms of the union that you will now see the formations in which they are going to relate, whether they're going to be a union of 4 regions or a union of 10 states and all that, whether they are going to have 1 tier or 2 tiers of government, which is where you now see unitarism and federalism, whether they're going to have most of the powers loaded in the center or in the federating units. And what Nigeria, the multi-ethnic nature of Nigeria, was what compelled the decision in the 50s as discussions were happening towards independence. It was the multi-ethnic, multi-religious composition of Nigeria that informed the decision by the founding fathers to agree to be a federation. And all those things got toppled, Nigeria was stillborn because it was the independence election of 1959 that led to all the troubles for which Awolowo ended up in prison, and there was a breakdown of everything. And then the soldiers came in January of 1966. The counter coup leading to the fracturing of the 4 regions of the time that were the federating units. They had the constitution, they had their own constitutions ahead of the federal constitution that they went to agree upon in Lancaster House. So where we are now is that from that 1966-67 toppling, because it was by 67 that they now fractured the 4 regions into 12 states, progressively to 19 states when Murtala Mohammed came, and further to 24, 30, and now we have 36 states, which was no longer a product of anybody's discussion. It was now the people by military, the soldiers who were in power, who had seized power, who had hijacked the sovereignty of everybody, that were imposing these instruments by fiat, by decree. And so they wobbled on to 1979 when they codified all of what they had done by decree, since after they abandoned the constitutions that federated us. Nigeria ceased to be a federation since 1966, effectively, since the counter coup of 1966. And what we still have a country in place. And this false claim that first happened in 1979 and carried forward in 1990, and that we the people, it is in that context, it is in that sense of who is it that has the power, the exclusive jurisdiction over that subject matter to make constitution.
All right.
Right. It is in that sense that the constituent components of Nigeria are saying that their sovereignty has been hijacked, and a constitution has been imposed without reference to them that has now rendered them slaves in their homelands.
All right. If I may, ask a question again, you are demanding a transitioning from constitutional renegotiation. Then who should be on that table where that renegotiation should happen?
Like doctors who do, you go from diagnosis to prescription and then to the treatment. The prescription must be based on correct diagnosis. The treatment must be based on correct prescription, in that order. And so the diagnosis that NINAS has done of what has gone wrong with Nigeria, in which Nigeria is the worst example of everything good. Poverty capital, the capital of crime, such that a gang of criminals have now we are now under state capture, and all kinds of everything you could think, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. Our diagnosis is that it is from that point where the sovereignties of the constituent components got hijacked by this illicit federal government, because you couldn't have a federal government if you do not have a federation. Nigeria ceased to be a federation from the point where the federating constitutions were jettisoned by military intervention and fiat and replaced by, again, military fiat. The last of them being Decree number 24 of 1999, which they labeled the 1999 Constitution. So the people who have to now rework their union, it is basically to say we either dissolve the union now that everything has failed. You can see people are dying all over the place. People are in misery. There's danger. Kidnappers are on rampage. The Fulani conquest agenda that has been there all the time, has gone to a new height. You saw what's going on in Plateau. Between the last time we spoke, we were here last week looking at this aspects of this same issue. Between that day and now, I'm sure you've heard all of what has happened everywhere around the country, such that Ibrahim Bangida will say that if nothing is done quickly enough, that soldiers may take over. Then the Sultan in Sokoto was saying that if food is somehow the matter is not arrested by any means possible, that people are going to pour into the streets from the north, and that means there could be a total breakdown of law and order, anarchy. And you can't tell people who are hungry and dropping dead on the streets that they are dying, as in dying to be buried on account of not being able to fend for themselves because of what politicians are doing in the name of governance. But it is this constitution that is at the center of everything that has included the free fall of the currency, the free fall of everything, the killings, the insecurity, the infrastructure that is in decay, the people that are running away from the country that's like a burning house. And so it is the constituent components of Nigeria now aggregated under the aegis of Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination that has rallied the people towards what they can do to recover their country, to recover their union, such that those in government house are not actually our quarrel is not with the people in government house. Our quarrel is with the constitution by which they've ruined everybody's lives, by which they've hijacked our sovereignty and our economic assets and all the rights and powers to organize ourselves, our security, our elections, our infrastructure, our everything. And so we have for 24 years since the imposition of this constitution in 1999, gone step by step of calling everybody concerned, because everybody was at everybody's throat all the while, and we didn't want anarchy. We said, Ijo, why are you blowing up a pipeline of shell? They say, we don't know how our oil and gas became the property of people we didn't discuss with. We sat down with them and showed them how it was done and persuaded them to put their guns aside for a while to come along. The same thing in the eastern side, the same thing with the OPC of Ghana Dams, the same thing in the middle belt, which you see how it's all proceeding now. So we were able to bring these constitutional grievances, these grievances that have become issues of contention on the streets across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Even those who are doing, even the one you call Boko Haram in the far north. Look at this map. The 12 states that imposed Sharia simultaneously in year 12 contiguous states, from Sokoto Kebbi all the way to Borno and Yobe on the other side, they imposed Sharia simultaneously and they are contiguous. And so we say that Sharia that they wanted, for which they toppled the secular constitution, the secular arrangement we thought we agreed upon at coming to independence. What is the difference? How am I to make a distinction between that Sharia that they imposed by due process? They went to House of Assembly, the governor signed into law, they formed the Hisbah and started dislocating people from the place who don't adhere to that. How am I to make a distinction between what they were looking for and what Boko Haram that now declared that it is Sharia or nothing that they were looking for? And so we say that having come to that point where it looks like everybody has abandoned the union everybody agreed to be in, have been, by the actions of some elements across the union, been lost. The union is no longer there because we agreed to be a federation. We're no longer a federation. And what is a federation in the sense we are discussing? A federation is a union of constitutions, a union of sovereignties. You bring your sovereignty, I bring my sovereignty. We're talking about land and people. Sovereignty is simply about lands and people that will form union for the purpose of what we are discussing. And so we submitted our sovereignty on account of having to be a federation. with autonomy levels in which Awolowo could decide what he did in Western region, Emma Okpara could do all of what he could do in the East, Ahmadu Bello and co. did what they could do in the North with their own assets, driving their own development. And so when for some reason you topple all of that and you become the owner of everybody, that is what has happened to Nigeria. The management, which is what the government is supposed to be, the three arms of government are just the management team for Enterprise Nigeria. But the owners of that enterprise and who sit at the apex of the authority line are the peoples of Nigeria. Therefore, the right to make their memo and article resides in them for all times. It never goes away. It is a product of their sovereignty, and that sovereignty is the one in which it's inalienable. Of course, you see, our people are here again.
All right. So, I mean, never mind. We will take a quick break. When we come back, I guess that, of course, Nigeria just happened to you. We will take a quick break. When we come back, it will have been sorted out, and then we will continue with the discussions here on the Eastern Eye. Stay with us.
Right.
You're welcome back to the Eastern Eye here on Afia TV. The Eastern Eye is a program that x-rays the political, social, and economic development around us. With me, Alex Owodo. We are reaching you from Enugu, Southeast Nigeria. So, I'm still having this conversation with Tony Nnadi. And with all the things you've explained, if there has been or there will be a meeting or whatever arrangements we will have and people discuss, what will be the likely outcome of that arrangement? What outcomes are you expecting to see? Hello, sir. I don't know whether you heard me. Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Apparently, Mr. Nnadi can't hear me. I'll try to get him to. All right. Mr. Nnadi, if you can hear me, I was asking what outcome are you expecting? If you can hear me now, Mr. Nnadi.
Yes, yeah, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
What outcome are you expecting from all the propositions you are making? Perhaps either if there would be an opportunity to sit down and have those discussions you are proposing, what outcome are you expecting or outcomes?
Yeah, the outcome is simple. For us to either get back to having a union, a federation, all of us who were in Nigeria before, at the time we got to independence in 1960 at least, or if we can't, and that union could then be a proper federation, a confederation, as would have been the case if Aburi was not, sabotaged and abandoned, or the emergence of independent units of successor states from the defunct Federation of Nigeria. I am conscious of the words I use. What has been the problem all the while is the mechanism by which these discussions could have been heard to arrive at outcomes that will not take us first to Somalia or Yugoslavia. Where the politicians are going now, what they've been doing across the last 40, 50 years had been to pretend that there's no problem at all, especially since they moved the capital to Abuja. They converge in Abuja, pretending to be representing people from all across Nigeria, those of them in the Senate. And then the one president will hop out from somewhere, and one INEC sitting in Abuja will dictate who will vote and who will not vote, or how the votes will be counted, and all of that. And these are the things that have been imposed by that, constitution. And so I will say upfront that what Ninas expects as outcome from this entire process is to arrest the drifting ship of state. The ship of the Nigerian state is sinking. We may all pretend, like those who were in Titanic in those days, we may all pretend we do not understand that is what is going on. People are being slaughtered even in their homes. Others are being kidnapped on the highways. Every day you look at the news, you see the ones who have just been kidnapped for ransom. And if killings are going on on that scale across board, and we are saying, Ninas is saying that it is on account of the fact that those who are living in the danger of that insecurity, whether they were in Plateau or in Port Harcourt or in Abeokuta and Ibadan, those who have to live in that danger are under this constitution are not the ones organizing their security, because arms and ammunition are on the exclusive list of that constitution. That is what has brought us to this insecurity, because you then leave your security in the hands of those who do not wish you particularly well. And they are seated in Abuja, surrounded by soldiers and policemen who guide them 24 hours. They are agents in our territories, the ones they call governors, again, are in that protection, swearing to defend, upholding that constitution that offer them humongous wealth while impoverishing the rest of the people to the point of death. And so they are all together, all of those who subscribe to that constitution, and these are now the political parties and all those who go to election after election under this constitution. And so the question of the security that people can see all around them that is not there is on account of this constitution. The question of the poverty that has overtaken them, this constitution absolves the government of responsibility towards them in section 6, subsection 6C. I want our listeners to realize that what we are talking about is not an academic, some kind of thing of academic discussion. We are telling you what is happening to you, including the killings happening to you, including your economic assets that are taken. For instance, the Niger Delta, where the oil and gas is no longer their assets, now belong to people in Jigawa and Kano. It is this constitution that took your economic assets, your oil and gas. You are not going to get it back even in 50 years, except something takes down this constitution. And since it is your signature that has been implanted illicitly, fraudulently, in that preamble, it means that you are the one who submitted your land, your waters, your oil and gas assets into the Union of Nigeria to be managed in the manner that has been stipulated by that constitution. And it is by decree that everything was done. So you can see that unless something takes down this constitution, we go nowhere. Anybody who tells you that any of these things will change, the security you see now, the poverty you see, because section 6, subsection 6C of that constitution absolves the government of responsibility towards the citizen. It's in black and white. If you know of any lawyer, whether it's professor of law or senior advocate, anybody, or even these civil society people that come to run their mouth, human rights lawyers, ask them whether under this constitution the government owes the citizen any form of obligations for school, for hospital, for welfare, for security. In black and white, section 6, subsection 6C says the government can, it's at their discretion to do or not do, and you do not have any legal recourse if they don't, meaning that if they don't do it, you are just go to cry to your God in your church. That's what it is. Then if that is the case, and you come to the appropriation provisions, that is the provisions under which, the arrangements under which a governor can go to take money that belongs to the state, or president can take the money that belongs to the country. The sections 81, 82 in that constitution give the president the spare key to the treasury. He can take all the money in your treasury. Section 121, 122 does the same for the governors. They can take all the money in the, because of the way that the appropriation provisions are written. Because it makes a leeway for them to take without talking to the National Assembly or their state assemblies. And then you come to section 308 that gives them absolute immunity. You can't question them while they're in office, until they leave office. So if they don't owe you any obligation, and for anything at all, school, hospital, welfare, security, unlike what many people think is the case, the opposite is the case. The entire document is a fraud through and through. Everything you are told is a lie. And if that is the reason things are upside down, they don't owe you any obligation. They have the spare key to the treasury. They have immunity. You can't question them. Where will the dividends of democracy that people are going to run their mouth on TV every day, where will it come from? And so it is to arrest these matters. The fuel subsidy we're talking about, for instance, that nobody knows the price of petrol now, is because petrol, oil and gas and petroleum refinery are on that exclusive list. There's nothing in petroleum, in crude oil refining that cannot be done in Nigeria. But because it is on that exclusive list, people sit in Abuja and give license to whoever they deem fit. They may say, oh, it's one Fulani man. That will refine for all of us. That's what you get. The 4 refineries that Nigeria built, none of them is producing anything. It's been story after story and billions of dollars being taken away in the name of refinery. All you need to solve that problem is to remove that impediment. People can refine. What is there in refinery? Biafra ran for 3 years. Vehicles were moving in the place. They didn't have to import anything because they were refining. It is because Nigeria of unitarism, Nigeria of centralized control, says nobody else can refine apart from federal government. The federal government has not refined for us in 30 years. Why can't we get away from the foolishness of thinking that we can continue to import 3 million barrels of crude oil we export every day? Then we get people who buy it from us to refine and bring back to us. The employment that we should have, we're not having. The pressure on the naira is mostly, on account of the fact that we have to import this, finished products for everybody, for this 200 million plus population. As it is with the refineries, and of course, the fuel subsidy is now where you have to pay for that inefficiency, for that difference between what it should have been if we were producing here, with all the employment benefits, employment that will come with it, because you have millions of young people trooping around, you have no employment for them. You have no electricity. The same thing that happened to, the refineries happened to electricity. People don't have electricity because it's on the exclusive list. Electricity generation and transmission, only the federal government can do. What is there in electricity generation? Of course, the other day, Buhari was leaving office. He signed something to the effect that states can now do. All of those things are bogus. If you require gas to power your turbine, gas is still on the exclusive list. And so that problem has not been solved. The generation and transmission. The starting point for discussing any change for any of these things I've listed, infrastructure, the security, the corruption we see because of the immunity that breeds impunity, all of those things go nowhere. The leadership that we have seen, what it has been all the while.
Yeah.
Look at it is the centralized control of electioneering that Abuja sits. You saw what happened in Imo. People can sit in Abuja. You saw what happened in 2023 presidential election. Everybody knew who won the election. P2P won the election. Is he president today? No. Why is it so? The Constitution. The Constitution of Nigeria is what has enabled those who sit where they sit to decide what they decide that is still standing. So what NINAS is doing is to lead the rest of us to say, we cannot travel on this wrong road any further. Either we stop now and go to transition, to work out like South Africa did with apartheid in 1990, to work out what will become our union, or we disperse from this union of debt it has become on account of this imposition. That is where we are. That is what NINAS is leading. We are hoping that sanity will prevail in good time. Otherwise, we are closer to Yugoslavia now than anything else.
All right, good. It's important you've taken your time to lay this all out. But as we speak, a lot of people want to leave the country. A lot of people say Nigeria is corrupt. In fact, at a point, former United Kingdom Prime Minister says that the country was fantastically corrupt. So, I mean, people are living in droves. If you go to the international wing of our airports, you won't believe what you're seeing. Or if you find yourself in any international flight leaving Nigeria, it's usually full to the brim. Sometimes some people don't get seats in these international flights. So typically the point you're making, we'll have barely 2 minutes to go. The point you're making is that all the problems we are facing today is supposed to be sorted out by sorting out first the ground norm, isn't it? Which is the Constitution.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So and how do we proceed with this? We'll just have 2 minutes. What do you think?
Right.
Who should be listening to what you're saying? Who should, steer some action in this direction?
Those 200 million people who are living in the fear of being killed, whether they are traveling or they're in their homes, in Abuja or in Port Harcourt or in Ibadan or Lagos, those people who are watching their currency collapsing, their economy upside down, those people who do not have equal opportunities with others who are so privileged, all of them, the only thing NINAS is inviting them to do now, two things: to put aside all of what they thought was the problem before, because that place they're going to is not the solution. They have to understand what the problem is, that it is this constitution, and that elections only renew the life of this constitution. The politicians who are cutting away billions and billions of naira and dollars every day, are able to do so on account of the authorization of this constitution. And so, if we want a reversal of that situation, we must now demand a transition. NINAS has placed a plan on the table that can guide everybody through it. NINAS, the constitutional force majeure. And there's a 5-point proposition that takes us from start to finish for what needs to be done now. The only thing that needs to happen is that the peoples of Nigeria must now connect with that entire plan and make a concerted demand for a transition. If we wait, the election has happened, and we saw that it was inconclusive. We saw that the constitution was abandoned by both INEC and the judiciary. But since you are the ones who have to make constitution, and you have the peoples of Nigeria have veto on account of what I had earlier explained, they have veto over what is their constitution. So we can wake up inside February of 2024 to demand, that's all that we need to do now, to join in saying that NINAS is right, because we have examined what NINAS said, that we must now go to transition to rework the basis of our union. And if we're not doing that on account of people who are refusing to come, let us also bear in mind that the situation is not as helpless as it seems. Those who can manage their own affairs are going to take unilateral steps in self-determination, which is inalienable. Their sovereignty is inalienable. Those who sit in Abuja and hope that it is this forgery that will be basis of union forever, they are just making a mistake. Those who are being killed are not going to endure the killings. They've endured the seizure of the economic assets. They've endured all kinds of other indignities and dislocations. But to be slaughtered, to now be replaced by populations that are pouring in across the border, or that those who impose themselves now as government are doing all the kinds of things we see them doing. Nobody is discussing anything that might solve the problem. Okay. Let the peoples of Nigeria demand a transition now, so that we can go and solve this problem. Otherwise, it will go up in smoke, and it is avoidable.
All right. We have to thank you so much for your contributions on the Eastern Eye tonight. Tony Nnadi is, of course, he's been, laying it out here. Tony Nnadi is a legal practitioner, Secretary General of the Lower Niger Congress, LNC, and the co-convener of the NINAS, that is Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. Thank you so much for your perspectives on the program tonight. And that's the Eastern Eye tonight. We'll be back tomorrow same time. My name is Alex Obo.